Now let's take a look at the production budget in Chapter 7. And to start off with, let's review the last thing we looked at in class on Wednesday, which was the 3 inventories for a manufacturer. I specifically want to look at the inventory for finished goods. So let me get rid of those other 2 inventories for materials and work in process. Delete that. Delete that arrow there. And now let's just cut and paste that finished goods information right over there. So all of that information for finished goods is a dollar amount. That's the cost of beginning finished goods inventory, a dollar amount. It's the cost of goods manufactured, the input, cost of ending inventory, and cost of goods sold, the output from finished goods. Now I want to take a look at the finished goods formula in terms of units. Number of units in beginning inventory, number of units manufactured or number of units produced, number of units produced, production in terms of units, ending inventory in terms of number of units in finished goods, and number of units sold, or just sales in terms of units. Now let me give you a little information. Let's suppose sales are 10,000 units. And let's suppose ending inventory is 6,000 units. And beginning inventory is 2,000 units. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can't solve for that missing number, production. Compute production. Now let's take a look together. There's my beginning inventory for finished goods in terms of units, plus production, number of units produced, minus ending inventory is equal to sales, or number of units sold. My inventory formula, and let's head that column up with units. My inventory formula for finished goods in terms of units, underline and center that. So my beginning inventory was 2,000 units. My ending inventory is 6,000 units. That's subtracted, so I'm going to say minus 6,000. Not a negative quantity, but it's subtracted. And sales are 10,000. So now I need to solve for production. And to solve for production, I say equals 10,000 minus a minus 6,000 minus 2,000. And that gives me 14,000 units produced, solving for production. Next, I would like for you to rearrange that inventory formula for units and finished goods and solve for production. Instead of having to use algebra to solve for an intermediate total, I would like for you to start with sales and end up with production. So why don't you rearrange that inventory formula such that you start with sales and end up with production. Pause the video and see if you can't do that. Now let's take a look together. When we solved for production above, we said sales minus a minus ending inventory. So I'm going to say plus ending inventory. And then we said minus beginning inventory. So I'm going to say minus beginning inventory. And that's the exact formula that we used to compute the 14,000 above. So we have 10,000 in sales. And we said minus a minus 6,000 in ending inventory, or plus 6,000. I'm going to subtotal right there before I subtract. Sales plus ending inventory is 16,000. And then we say minus beginning inventory of 2,000 to give us production. 16,000 minus 2,000 is equal to 14,000 in production. Exactly like we did above, but we've now rearranged the formula so we can go top to bottom instead of having to solve for an intermediate subtotal. So let's take a look at that formula in the book on page 293. It says sales plus ending inventory, and that subtotal, sales plus ending inventory, is called total needs. So let me drop that description in my formula. Sales plus ending inventory gives you total needs. And the idea is we're going to ship 10,000 units to our customers, and we want 6,000 units left in ending inventory, so we need 16,000 units. And the question is, where are those units going to come from? And if we already have 16,000 in beginning inventory, we don't have to make or produce any. In this case, we only have 2,000 in beginning inventory, so we're going to have to produce 14,000. Now let's take a look at the example in the book, also on page 293. Notice rows 10 through 14 are the same formula that we have. Let's take a look at the first quarter. Same 10,000 units in sales as in our formula, right there. Same 14,000 units produced, production, required production, right there as the bottom line. So that's exactly the same numbers and exactly the same formula as we just developed. Now let's take a look at the description for this problem in the chapter, also on page 293. The first quarter's budgeted sales are 10,000 cases, right there. And ending inventory for each quarter is 20% of the next quarter's sales. So the desired ending inventory for the first quarter is 6,000 cases, right there. And those 6,000 cases are computed by saying 20% of the next quarter's sales, right there. 20% of 30,000 cases, and those 30,000 cases are the second quarter sales. So ending inventory is 20% of the next quarter's sales. So let me zoom in on that, and there you can see that the 6,000 ending inventory for the first quarter is 20% of the second quarter's 30,000 in sales. So let's take a look at exercise 7-2. Crystal Telecom has budgeted sales of its phones for the next 4 months as follows. The company is now in the process of preparing a production budget for the third quarter. And the third quarter consists of July, August, and September. Past experience has shown that end-of-month finished goods inventory, that's ending inventory, must equal 10% of the next month's sales. So you might say, how come we have October's sales? Well, September's ending inventory is going to be equal to 10% of the October sales. So we are to prepare a production budget for the third quarter, showing number of units to be produced each month and for the quarter in total. So let's take a look at that. I've set up a schedule just like the one in the book, just like this. And the example in the book, Schedule 2, shows the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, and then a total for the year. We're going to show July, August, and September, and the total for the third quarter. So let's move this out of the way. So why don't you set up your schedule like that and see if you can't complete exercise 7-2. Let me scoot that up for you and see if we can't get it all on the screen right there. And let me get rid of all that scratching. So why don't you pause the video and see if you can't complete exercise 7-2. Now let's take a look at the solution together. My ending inventory for July should be 10% of August sales. So I'm going to say equals 0.1 times August sales of 45,000. And that gives me 4,500 ending inventory for July. And now my total needs for July consist of 30,000 that I want to ship to customers and 4,500 that I want to have left in ending inventory. My total needs are 30,000 plus 4,500, 34,500. And the question is, where am I going to get those from? Well, if I already have that many in beginning inventory, I'm not going to have to produce any. If I only have 100 in beginning inventory, then I'm going to have to produce the remaining 34,400. So beginning inventory for July, that number right there, beginning inventory for July should be June's ending inventory. And June's ending inventory was 10% of the next month's sales. So June's ending inventory was 0.1 times the next month's sales, 10% of July's sales, 10% of 30,000. So there's June's ending inventory, 3,000, which is July's beginning inventory. Let me make that negative. Not because it's a negative quantity, but because I'm subtracting it to arrive at production. So once again, I need 34,500 units. 3,000 are already there in beginning inventory, so I'm going to have to make or produce the remaining 31,500 units. So that's my budgeted production, or my planned production, or my scheduled production for the month of July. Now let's take a look at August required production. For August ending inventory, I'm just going to copy July's ending inventory formula over to August, and that gives me 10% of September sales. 6,000 units in ending inventory for August. Add those two together to get 51,000. Copy and paste to get 51,000 in total needs for August. And now August beginning inventory is going to be July's ending inventory. So I'm going to take July's ending inventory and put it right down there. So equals, and then go get that July ending inventory with a formula and put it in for August beginning inventory. Actually, I need to make that a negative amount, so minus, point to that 4,500, and there's August beginning inventory of 4,500, July's ending inventory. And last of all, production for August, I need 51,000 units in August, enough to ship 45,000 to customers, and have 6,000 left in ending inventory. So I need 51,000, that's my total needs. 4,500 are already there in beginning inventory. So just combine those two things, copy and paste that formula, and I have to produce 46,500 to meet my needs for August. For September, ending inventory is 10%, 0.1 times October's sales, 50,000. So that should be 5,000 for ending inventory for September. There's October's sales that I just used. And total needs, copy and paste that formula. My total needs are 65,000 units, 60,000 to ship to customers, and 5,000 left in ending inventory. Some of those needs are met by what's already there in beginning inventory, so my beginning inventory for September is going to be August ending inventory. So I write a formula right here, and I want that to be negative. I say minus, and I go up and point to August ending inventory of 6,000. And 6,000 of my 65,000 in September needs are met by beginning inventory, so I'm going to have to make, copy and paste, 59,000 units. I'm going to have to produce 59,000 units in September. That's required production for September. Now let's take a look at the total for all three of those months. I'm going to add September, August, and July's sales to get my total for the third quarter. 30,000 plus 45,000 plus 60,000. Now my ending inventory for the third quarter ends on September 30th. So my ending inventory for September is also the ending inventory for the third quarter. So rather than typing that in, I'm just going to use a formula and point to that 5,000 September ending inventory. And there's my ending inventory for the quarter as well as September. Add those two things up. And during the quarter, I'm going to ship 135,000 units to my customers, and I want 5,000 units left in ending inventory, so my total needs for the quarter are 140,000 units. Some of those needs are met by what's already there in beginning inventory, so my beginning inventory for the quarter is July's beginning inventory. So I'm just going to write a formula that goes and picks up that 3,000 right there. And now my production for the quarter, I need 140,000 units. 3,000 of those are already sitting there in beginning inventory. So during the quarter, I'm going to have to make 137,000 units. Now I computed that by combining those two things above it. I can also double check that figure by summing the production for the 3 months. And that totals to 137,000 also. And I think that completes exercise 7-2. We prepared a production budget for the third quarter. We showed the number of units produced each month, and we showed the total for the quarter. So make sure you're prepared for a quiz on this on Monday at the beginning of class. I'm also going to set exercise 7-2 up in Connect, not as an assignment, but just as practice. You can work exercise 7-2 unlimited times in Connect, and that should be time well spent in preparing for the quiz.